So I wanted to do a different type of video today, rather than just upload videos of people in the gym training. I thought I would try a different type of content and see how you guys like it. If you like it, just leave us a like, leave us a comment, and even a cheeky subscribe to help the channel. But I wanted to talk to you about something that's always hot on the forums, and that is creatine. Creatine as a supplement that we take. I remember creatine was... I've been lifting quite a long time now, and I remember when creatine first arrived on the scene as a supplement. And it was the first one I ever saw was by a company called Tropicana, and it was a simple creatine monohydrate, and it was hugely expensive, and you got a tiny amount, 250 grams or whatever it was, for about 25 quid all them years ago. The best article I ever read on creatine monohydrate was by a guy called Paul Borison. Some of you might know him, some of you might not, but he's dead now. He had a lot of critics because he's very extreme in what he thought. He was a bodybuilding coach. I'm not a bodybuilder, never have been, just train for strength. But he used a massive amount of steroids all of the time. He died quite a long time ago. But he wrote an article called Drop the Dead Donkey, and it talked about creatine in a way that I've never heard or read since. And that had a massive impact on me. Now, I'm a scientist. That's my job. That's how I earn my living. And the one thing I do like to do is try to do my research on these things. People will say Google's not a great place to do your research, and it's not. It's not a great place to go and do your research. But you can access Google Scholar on Google, and they do have scholarly articles on many, many things, including creatine. So I wanted to do this, just give you a little 5 minutes on my views on creatine. If this goes down well, we can talk about other things. We'll talk about some performance-enhancing drugs, steroids, that sort of a thing. Or maybe we'll do that. If you want to hear that sort of a thing, or just drop us a comment and see how we get on. Tell me to sod off, whatever it is. But that would be great. If you could leave a comment, or you want any more sort of stuff like this, we'll do that. So, let's get to it. What is creatine? Let's start earlier. In the old days, the old school bodybuilders, and I suppose from time to time you hear about it these days, referred to your body being in a negative nitrogen balance or a positive nitrogen balance. Why is that important regarding this? Bear that in mind. If we take a piece of muscle and chop it down into its constituent parts and look at those parts under a microscope, we find that there is in fact what appears to be a priority order of amino acids. We know there's 22 amino acids, 9 of which are essential, meaning we have to eat them because our body can't manufacture them. If we look at all of the amino acids and imagine that each amino acid was represented by a little pot with that amino acid in, there's a priority order that starts at number 1 and goes all the way down to number 22. The most important and most abundant is glutamine, as we know, then taurine, then aspartic acid, all the way down to the very end one, which is methionine. As you can imagine, we need more protein than the average person to build and repair what we do to ourselves in the gym. And again, by extension, we can imagine if our most important amino acid in human muscle tissue and the most abundant glutamine, if that pot was empty, production would stop. We'd be in a negative nitrogen balance until by one way or another, we got some more glutamine in that pot. But also, just as interestingly, if the methionine pot at the end is empty, production stops. We're in a negative nitrogen balance until either our body manufactures more or we eat more and all of the pots are filled up. Being loaded with creatine, and whether you believe it should be loaded or not, it doesn't matter to me. I feel that there should be a small loading phase and then a maintenance phase, but that's irrelevant. Creatine is 3 amino acids. It's arginine, it's glycine, and it's methionine. Now, creatine in our body is converted into creatine phosphate and phosphocreatine, and it's stored in muscle cells, which our body then uses as energy. We know our muscles have various energy sources, ATP and creatine, and even research is showing now that lactic acid is actually a fuel source for our muscles. You can go and research that yourself, or we can talk about it another time. If we have an adequate supply of creatine, bear in mind how difficult it is for our bodies to make it. We have to eat a lot of meat, maybe it's up to 1 kilogram a day, to even meet our basic requirements, 1 or 2 grams. Which is why the supplementation of creatine came along, because it was discovered that if we supplement with creatine and we increase the amount that we have, actually but the science shows that our lean body mass with appropriate training and diet increases, as does strength. But for me, the biggest benefit is staying in what we call this positive nitrogen balance, because from those 3 simple amino acids, our body can make many more and work massively towards keeping us in this positive nitrogen balance, in this constant state of building and repairing. Because let's be honest, we don't always, all of us, take a protein shake out of the house with us. We probably should, but we don't. We don't always eat. I know there's new stuff coming out now. Are 6 meals a day necessary? Maybe not. Can we eat 3? Maybe. I remember reading an article, and I'll try to find it and put it in the link. We imagine a cell structure. We imagine a big cell. At the bottom of a cell is like a little tap or a lymph duct. When we eat food, the cell will drag in a little bit of this and a little bit of that protein, that amino acid, this amino acid, that amino acid, bundle it up, send it off to where it needs in very simplistic terms. But every 3 or 4 hours, the cells will drain themselves and then need to then drag in more of the things that it needs to go and do the things that it needs to do. If we haven't got that in our blood system, in our blood, then it can't drag it in. Again, very, very simplistic terms. And I'm sure many of you can articulate that much more fluently than I just did. But that's the system. So to me, it does make a little bit of sense that every 3 hours or so, just have something, get something in you. I know the strongmen do that. The likes of the Stoltmans and Adam Bishop and Terry, these people, they all still do that. But anyway, back to creatine. Creatine, because it has this ability to have more amino acids manufactured from the ones that it gives us, helps us stay in this state so that when we do find ourselves in a position of maybe not having eaten as often as we should, or quite as much protein as we should, or maybe we have nipped out without it, it just gives us that little bit of insurance to be able to make sure that we keep on building and repairing. Which one is best? That always comes up, and there are so many. There are so many, and all of them are studied and researched and that sort of a thing. I've only used a couple. I've used monohydrate, which I always have good results with. It always gets me a bit stronger. I do prefer to load with it 4 or 5 days. I just like it in some fruit juice. Does it denature in warm liquid? I don't know. Can you take it with coffee? I don't know. I know that I can, and I get a good result from it. I know that when I've used warm water to take it, I've had the same results. I just don't like the taste of it in warm water, but I don't mind it in orange juice, and I don't mind it in grape juice or cherry juice or any of that sort of a thing. I used ethyl ester, and it just made me feel awful. It upset my stomach. So, quite simply, I just don't use that one anymore. I've tried a couple of the others. I didn't like them. The same problem. But I do like monohydrate. Does it make you hold water? Yeah, a little bit. But what's the problem with that? I have no problem with holding a little bit of water. I'm not interested in being a bodybuilder or abs or any of that sort of a thing. As you see in my videos, you see I haven't got abs and I'm not bothered, and I probably never will be. But I like monohydrate. It's easy to use. There's no messing around. Put a bit in a glass of orange, get it down you. 4 or 5 days of 4 or 5 times a day of a teaspoon, and you're good to go. And off you go. And I don't know anybody who has used it like that and hasn't seen some benefit. I think the reason that our body tends to hold a lot of water is if it hasn't got enough of it. We should all be drinking 2 or 3 litres of water a day, absolutely more so as people that train in the way that we do with the weights that we lift. It's absolutely imperative. But anyway, I'm aware that this has been a 10-minute long video now of me just rabbiting on, and I'm not particularly comfortable in front of a camera like this, so I'm going to call this one off. If you want more sort of stuff like this, just let us know, and I'll be more than happy to bore the shit out of you all again. Okay, thanks for listening. Like I said, leave a comment below if you've got any other interesting things to add to this, or you think I'm wrong about something. Always happy to learn, provided you could evidence it, because everything I've said I can evidence with the things that I've researched and studied myself. But anyway, leave a comment, give us a like, give us a subscribe if you would like to help the channel, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.